Welcome back to Soulful and Sober. This is Chrissy. We're going to talk about sleep, alcohol, and cortisol, and how it's related to what we really need to hear about. Because if you keep drinking, you are disrupting your sleep. You are kind of wreaking havoc on your cortisol levels. That being said, this episode will resonate also with people who are alcohol free because everybody has stress, right? And cortisol is the stress hormone. And I want to put a little caveat. Normal stress and cortisol aren't bad, right? It's not bad to have stress. And actually, we need some level of stress because it can be helpful. What I'm going to talk a little bit more about today is chronic levels of cortisol. Again, this is your stress hormone. It can create a lot of havoc. And what can happen is this is like, you're a lion in the wilderness, right? And you have a predator coming towards you. Your fight flight will go like kick on, right? And that's a good thing in those types of situations. So it does serve us. But after that lion, maybe fights that predator or leaves the situation, they kind of chill out, they shake things off, and they go back to their normal state where they're not elevated. The issue is if we have elevated levels of cortisol all the time, we don't have safety in our body. We're going to find we're not sleeping well. We might find that we have a hard time relaxing. We feel wired. There's many things that are correlated with high levels of cortisol that become chronic and problematic when we can't relax and get back to that more of a restful, at peace state. So that is what I'm talking about. And the issue is with modern day life, we are spiking our cortisol levels and not getting them back down to normal, like or normal place all the time during the day. And sometimes we're living in chronic cortisol, which again will wreak havoc, but it also is very unhealthy for you and your body. So let's first jump into what alcohol does to cortisol and your sleep. So cortisol, again, is a stress hormone. Again, I think a lot of people talk about it, but alcohol increases cortisol. Also while reducing sleep quality. And high levels of cortisol do disrupt sleep and then causing more stress throughout the day. And then a lot of times we feel so blah and bad, we maybe have another glass of wine and we have this like vicious cycle going on and on and on and on. And we don't feel good during the day. And then we kind of look forward to maybe this drink on the weekends or at night or whenever. And we don't really realize it's not actually helping us unwind or relax or do what we think it's doing. It's actually creating more cortisol, ruining our sleep, and it actually isn't really making us get to a place of relaxation. Also, alcohol triggers high levels of cortisol during sleep. It causes fragmentation of sleep, awakenings, and again, it really reduces your REM sleep. So basically, you can have higher levels of anxiety and really poor recovery the next day. So it actually is probably making you even more anxious. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's hard to get to the bottom of things like what's real anxiety, what's real worry. And what I mean by that is like you might have a baseline of maybe more worry, right? And that might be something you do need to work on or address, but it's hard to address the thing without removing the thing that's causing the anxiety. And I really think that's important to look at. And although alcohol might seem to relax you, again, it triggers a significant rise in cortisol as the body metabolizes it. And again, especially later in the night and the next morning. I, you also might find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, right? So it keeps your heart rate, cortisol keeps your heart rate higher if it's increased. And you also have broken sleep. And then again, that restorative sleep that is extremely important. Sleep is like the most underrated thing that people can do for themselves that can significantly improve your life. Also, alcohol interferes with the brain sleep wake cycle. So again, creating further cortisol production that disrupts sleep stages. It really does not help your sleep. It really just does a lot of bad things. But I want to take it a little bit deeper. So When you have high levels of cortisol, and again, I think that there needs to be another episode just on cortisol, but if you have increased cortisol, you might also have increased sugar cravings and other things because it spikes your insulin levels or so it does all these crazy things that people aren't aware of. So you might start having, cravings for sugar, like wanting chips. Also, the other thing is when you have disrupted sleep, and I think this is important to talk about because not everybody's drinking, right? Some people have stopped or take breaks and they're like, what the heck? If you have poor sleep, which cortisol alone can really disrupt your sleep. So even if you're not drinking, you still have that. So you have to understand like it's a double whammy when you're drinking. You're doing drinking, increasing cortisol. And then if you have like, things that are really stressful, you're not sure how to deal with and you're processing it, you got two things going on. And the other thing is ghrelin and leptin. So ghrelin and leptin are your hunger hormone and your fullness hormone essentially. So one is tells your body I'm hungry and the other one says, "Hey, I'm full." So if you do not get proper sleep, you will find that you're hungrier and you're like your levels are all off. So this is why quality sleep is so important. And I also want to say when you have high levels of cortisol and you are in the fight, flight, freeze fawn. So that is when you're basically in the sympathetic nervous system state where your body's not safe. You're not safe. If you cannot get out of that, and if you're in that for a chronic period of time, your metabolism slows down. Lots of different things happen. And because it's getting ready to do something, it needs energy. So it needs energy from something in your body. And so all these things are happening. So sometimes people have a hard time losing weight. They have a hard time, with many things because of all these things happening. And again, I will do a much deeper dive into all this because I think insulin needs to be discussed. Insulin's there. It is part of all of this. Because if we're spiking our insulin all day long, eating all these food because we didn't get quality sleep and we just feel like we can't stop eating, it's number one, isn't it nice to know it's actually your biology part of it? It's not just like you have a problem with food. It also there's a biology component to it. But if you're spiking your insulin all day long, you're also increasing your cortisol. So it's kind of this crazy vicious cycle. And then again, if you are having some life things that happen to you where you're feeling really stressed out, where you're not getting quality sleep, where you just feel like constantly anxious, like wired, and like all these things, you have to think like, how does that actually affect me? So this is why it's important to learn about cortisol. And again, I'm not trying to demonize stress. I'm just saying if you cannot get yourself into a place of the rest digest, the parasympathetic, where your body feels safe and grounded and calm, because you can still like have something happen to you and find safety. If you're not finding safety in your body and you feel like constantly every night or every weekend or whatever, where you just, it's just, you can't chill out. And yeah, alcohol and food and all these other things become almost like your coping mechanism because you can't, it's too much. This is where it becomes a problem, right? This is where we have a lot of things happen where we gain weight, we don't feel good about ourselves, we're not sure how to deal with our anxiety. And this is where people obviously have problems and we pay for more supplements and all these other things. And we don't even realize all the things that go on. And this is why it's just important to talk about it because it's not just the alcohol, right? Alcohol can manifest these things though. So if you don't get good sleep and you have higher cortisol levels and you do have like life things, we all have life things. Like we have things that happen to us in our lives that are hard, traumatic, and that's just life, right? But if we are already feeding it alcohol and we already are getting poor sleep, we're snacking all the time because our hormones are off the charts all over the place, you can imagine how this is problematic because then you have some health issues and maybe you're snacking at night and you're finding yourself reaching for wine and it's again a vicious cycle and you're not going to actually get to the root of the issue, right? Whether it's medical health or your own psychological needs. It's hard to get to that point because some people are like, I have anxiety, I have to drink. this makes me feel better. And I'm like, but does it? Like, if you really took a deep dive, does drinking a glass of wine, it might feel like it feels better because you're like, it's that one thing. But if you learned, well, what is another thing that you could do that actually doesn't ruin your week, that doesn't ruin your sleep, that doesn't ruin everything for you? Would you do that? Would you want to do that? Because some of this also is your nervous system, like I've talked about in previous episodes, have learned that alcohol or food or whatever the substance is, it's going to make you feel better. It's learned that over time. And so part of this is really learning different ways to cope, but you have to understand the underlying emotion of what's going on. And a lot of people actually do understand on some level. I know I'm numbing out. I don't want to feel this emotion. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily knowing how to actually stop it or control it. Because believe me, I've been there. It's the most infuriating thing. Like, you can be the smartest woman on planet Earth and still find yourself having these issues, even when you stop drinking. Even when you stop drinking, you might find yourself looking for food or looking for something else. People go to sugar a lot when they stop drinking. And yes, they are like, well, at least I'm not drinking, but they still don't feel good about it. They don't feel good about it. And that's usually the indicator is something's not working when I don't feel good. If you woke up and didn't drink and you felt amazing, you wouldn't be like, oh, I feel awful, right? You'd be like, this is great. This is how I want to feel. And then maybe do that for a little bit of time, then something happens in your life and you are reaching for food, reaching for wine. You're scrolling on social media right before bed. Your cortisol is through the roof. So blue light absolutely increases our cortisol levels. And they've just come out with more and more stuff on it. And it's hard for a lot of us because our phones are such a part of our lives that it's so hard to be like, okay, at this time, I'm going to put my phone down, put it across the room. So, I think that we're going to like head into what can you do? What feels good? So it might be take inventory for a week. What am I doing that's not serving me? Am I scrolling? Am I doing this? Am I looking at my phone before I go to bed? What am I doing that might be increasing my cortisol levels? And again, you can be drinking and you not be drinking. When you're drinking, you will increase your cortisol levels. Like, the alcohol will increase it. And then if you let's say you have a really stressful thing and you're dealing with that, right? Because again, life's. It does. We can't prevent everything in our life from happening, but we can get more awareness and then get better coping strategies than some of the strategies we have. Because some of them, frankly, and I'm guilty too, aren't serving us. So again, routines. Your body likes routines. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. I know that's not doable for everybody, but I think having somewhat of a routine schedule. Can you do some meditations or breath work or signal your body's time to rest, whether it's 5 minutes of reading, breathing? And yes, I have to use my phone. I do. I use my phone. I actually have like glasses that are blue light glasses. So when I go to bed, sometimes, depending on what mood I'm in, I just found this really cool gratitude journal where it, like, prompts 5 questions. It's like really great because sometimes thinking about 3 to 5 things to write about, it kind of gets like monotonous. So that is fantastic to do. You can get it on Amazon. Like, it's like the best gratitude journal. I don't know if I can link it below. Maybe I can. But anyways, reducing your screen time, routines, like, again, limiting the blue light. I also used to watch TV before I go to bed or before I went to bed. And sometimes that could be really stimulating. And I found that, like, I would watch, this is not healthy, you guys, but I totally am guilty. Like, murder mysteries and like documentaries about people killing people. Like, I was into all that stuff. Not kids, just adults. Like, I can't watch anything with kids. It freaks me out and makes me really depressed. But for some reason I can do it with adults, like all the serial killers. But like, I found a couple things happening. One, I would fall asleep during it sometimes, but other times I'd be very stimulated and felt I couldn't chill. So if you think about it, what we watch, what we see has an emotional response in our body. This is why when you watch a movie, you cry. So imagine you're watching someone get like cut up or whatever. I mean, that's going to do something to your body, right? You're going to feel something. So limit that. I don't do that anymore. Sometimes it's news. Most news is not pleasant, especially these days. So you might have to limit the news you watch because, again, what we see, what we digest It's not just what, I call it the mental diet. It's not just what we eat. It's not just what we drink. It's also what we see and listen to that can like really wreak havoc on our sleep and our emotional state. I also think too that it's also limiting like a lot of sugar before bed. So, and again, I'm not telling you sugar's bad or good. I'm just saying because sometimes what will happen is that the sugar will increase your insulin levels, and that can sometimes keep you up and wake you up as well. So even watching what you eat before bed and seeing, and playing a game of like, does this work? How did I feel? Because again, a lot of this stuff is trial and error. What feels good, what works, what doesn't work. It's not, for me, I feel like it's not doing 20 different things because if you go from like, I'm gonna go to bed at this time. I'm gonna stop this and this and this and this. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I feel really deprived. Our brains sometimes don't like that. It feels like deprivation. So it's more like, what can I add? I'm gonna add these blue light glasses. I'm gonna add this meditation. You know what? And then again, maybe you do need to stop screens or like, I know scrolling's bad. So I'm gonna put my phone across the room. I have done that before, mainly so I get my butt up in the morning too. So I don't like do that. But I'm notorious. This is not good to look at my phone in the morning. And I know better. I know better, but I'm like delaying the inevitable while getting up. So this isn't about perfection, but it's about having awareness that everything we do and the actions we take, the habits we have a domino effect throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. And also like if you truly do have hormonal issues, sleep issues, and true stress issues that need to be really kind of looked at further, it is easier. It will be easier if you're not drinking. It will be. It's really hard to figure out like what is causing what and what is doing what. Because as we age, we have changes in hormones, right? Like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. These things are really important. And women's health is something that I think is such an overlooked thing. It's becoming way more popular now, which is so cool. I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but I have a place. The thing is this, all your hormones will be disrupted with alcohol. So if you are exhausted and have brain fog, it's so hard to know what the or two things that are doing it because the other thing is you could have a flavor of all the things happening and you don't know what it is. So you might have really high levels of cortisol without alcohol. You might have been sleeping bad because of the cortisol levels, which increase your cravings, and you're eating all this food, which is also creating these other issues in your life. So you can see how one thing affects the next thing affects the other thing. And then we haven't even touched on like the actual thing that's going on in your life that's stressing you out, right? Like, we have kids, we have grandparents, we have our own parents that we're taking care of. We have like the increased prices of things in life, financial stuff. So we have like actual stuff that is creating cortisol too. And whether it's chronic, and maybe it's not chronic, but the chronic stuff is important because also high inflammation caused by alcohol and caused by high levels of cortisol is detrimental to our body. And I can speak much, much, much more about this because I've had this happen to me. My white blood count is low, and I've noticed when I'm really not taking good care of myself with my stress. And I want to also point out, taking care of yourself, you might look good, but inside might be a disaster, girlfriend, because not everything people can't tell everything by just looking at you. Internal states and external states don't always match appearance wise. But anyways, my white blood count is always low and I have high levels of cortisol. And that's very bad because I get sicker and I have other things happen to me and I'm not taking care of myself. So I just want to point out that this is just more information so you can help yourself. It's not like, okay, I can't have any stress. No, no, stress is good. It's not a bad thing. But if you are noticing something's not adding value or you're noticing that you're really struggling, it's important to really look at these and it might be removing alcohol, but it also might be looking at your lifestyle too, because not everything is always alcohol related. once you stop drinking, obviously, there's other factors. And I think that's the most important thing because when you stop drinking, you get a baseline, meaning, I'll give you an example. All the hard things happened after I stopped drinking. I actually posted about this on Instagram. My emotional eating throughout my childhood would ebb and flow, and even into adulthood. Like I would eat, like emotionally eat, binge eat, and I dieted and did all these things. And when things got stressful after I stopped drinking, I noticed ebbs and flows. And I just thought everything would be like hunky dory once I stopped drinking. So I'm not going to go too much into tangent of that. My point of that is that the work that you do when you remove alcohol is extremely important. It is crucial to your happiness, your vitality. We all want to, right? We all want to like look younger and do all the things and feel really good. And so part of this is really like removing alcohol so you can feel really good. So you can age gracefully. And I'm not talking about skin and wrinkles and all that, although alcohol is terrible for your skin. But you want to have mobility, you want to have like vitality. And that is what happens when you stop drinking. And then you start taking good care of yourself and you work on the things that aren't serving you to have the best life. And sleep, that whole notion about you can sleep when you're dead, I think that's crap. We need to sleep so we can actually survive and we can feel good and we can function throughout the day and deal with the stressors. But it's not about not having them again. It's about how do we work through them and breathe through them and get a good place where we feel like, okay, I know this is happening, but I know I'm going to be okay. But if we have things that are happening and we don't feel safe and we don't feel like we're going to be okay, that is a recipe for just a disaster, right? You're going to have high cortisol. So I really, want to say as I end this episode is that I hope you take care of yourself. And I hope that you know it's okay not to be perfect. This world is not meant to be perfect. Sometimes things are messy. Sometimes we learn by just going through the motions. So I want you to give yourself a lot of grace and love as you go through this process, as you better yourself, as you remove alcohol, as you work on your sleep and your cortisol. It's a domino effect, like I mentioned, but also you got to give yourself grace and humility because this stuff isn't easy or everybody would be doing it. But it's also that knowing that you have it in you to do this. You have it in you to either get help or take that next leap. You can change your life. I am a testament of that. I've changed my entire life and I've worked with so many women that have done the same. You can do the same. So I don't want you to feel like you're always stuck and going on the hamster wheel. And I'm going to have further episodes on cortisol and what you can do and insulin and all the things because I think it's really important to learn about our bodies because just learning about we can learn about the emotions, like psychological stuff, but learning about the body is equally important because we're a system. If one thing's off, we all feel it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You can always feel free to let me know if there's episodes you want more information on, or if there's something you really, really need information on as well, whether it's intuition, whether it's alcohol free, whether it's food. Those are things that I love, love talking about. And I just feel like they all are intertwined, right? If you think about it, like how you feel in your body is like amazing. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are listening to this.